Most people have been paying for a car their entire adult lives without ever stopping to calculate the true total. Not just the monthly payment, but every dollar the vehicle costs you. The financing charges to the bank. The insurance that comes every month whether you drive or not. The fuel, the maintenance, the annual registration fees. The value that drains quietly out of the car every single year. When you add it all together, most American drivers are genuinely shocked by what they find. We tracked every cost on a typical American car purchase, from the day you sign the paperwork to the day you sell. Here is what a decade of car ownership actually looks like. Every calculation starts with a real-world example, so here are our assumptions. The vehicle is a mid-size sedan, the most common type sold in the United States. Average new car price, roughly $48,000, based on current Kelley Blue Book data. That is not a luxury car. That is the market average. The loan runs 66 months, which matches the current national average for auto loan terms. The interest rate is 7% annually. The down payment was 10% of the purchase price. We track this car over a full decade of ownership because that gives us a longer and more complete view of what ownership really costs. The typical American keeps a car for roughly 8 years. At the end, we compare the true cost against what that same money could have grown into if invested instead. The first year of the car ownership is when the financial damage is most concentrated. You hand over roughly $5,000 as a down payment. The remaining $43,000 goes toward the finance balance. The monthly loan payment comes to about $800. Over the full loan term, total interest charges run close to $10,000. You will pay roughly $53,000 in total loan payments before the balance is cleared. But there is a cost that does not appear on any statement. The moment you drive off the lot, the car begins losing value. That first mile depreciation erases roughly $4,000 before you reach your driveway. You paid $48,000 at purchase. By the end of the first year, the car is already worth only about $38,000. You have made 9 months of payments so far. You still owe close to $40,000 on a car whose value has already fallen substantially below what you borrowed. The gap between what you owe and what the car is worth is called being underwater. In the first year, nearly every new car buyer is in that position. After year 1, the loan payment continues. Every other cost of ownership continues with it, month after month, year after year. Car insurance in the United States averages roughly $2,100 per year for a mid-size sedan. That number has been rising for 5 consecutive years and shows no sign of stopping. Fuel costs add roughly $2,000 annually for the average driver. That assumes about 12,000 miles per year at current fuel prices. Drive more and the bill rises accordingly. Maintenance and routine repairs average about $1,200 per year in the early years. Oil changes, tire rotations, brake jobs, and filters. As the car ages and the factory warranty expires, that figure climbs. In the 6th and 7th year, larger repair bills become increasingly likely. Registration fees, state taxes, and mandatory costs add another $800 per year on average. Insurance, fuel, maintenance, and registration combined come to about $6,000 every year. That is entirely separate from your loan payment. During the loan period, your monthly payment runs about $800. Operating costs add roughly $500 more each month. Every month, more than $1,300 is leaving your account for a single vehicle. Over a full year, that comes to more than $15,000 spent on a single car. Here is where the real money disappears, quietly and consistently. The loan payment is visible on your statement. Depreciation is silent, but it runs every day in the background. By the 3rd year of ownership, the car has dropped to roughly $28,000 in value. You paid $48,000 at the time of purchase. That is $20,000 of value that has simply gone. The loan is still running at this point. You are making payments on something that is worth less every month. By the 5th year, the car is worth roughly $23,000 because depreciation does not slow down in the middle years. More than half of the original purchase price has vanished. By the 7th year, when most American drivers begin thinking about their next vehicle, the car has settled at around $17,000. That is more than $30,000 below the original price. After a full decade of ownership, the car is worth roughly $12,000. Now consider the full picture, because the numbers tell a complete story. You paid $48,000 to acquire this vehicle. A decade later, it is worth only $12,000. That means depreciation alone consumed $36,000 in asset value before you count a single dollar of insurance, fuel, or maintenance. This is the part of car ownership that most people feel but rarely name. The car shrinks in value every year. The operating costs keep coming regardless. Now let us put every cost on the table at once. The loan runs 66 months. Total payments, including interest, come to roughly $53,000. Insurance adds about $21,000 over the full ownership period. Fuel costs come to roughly $20,000 over the same period. Maintenance, repairs, registration, and fees over the decade add another $20,000. The combined total reaches roughly $115,000 for this vehicle over its full ownership period. At the end of the decade, you sell the car for about $12,000. The net cost of ownership comes to approximately $102,000. Most people do not have that number written down anywhere, because the monthly payment is the only figure they ever track. Most have never added it all up. They see the payment, the calculation stops there, and the full picture never gets built. A single car over a full decade, the true cost approaches $100,000. Here is the question most car owners never think to ask. What if you had chosen differently? Not no car at all. Just a more modest choice. You buy a solid used car for $14,000 and pay cash. Your monthly loan payment is now zero. Instead of making the loan payment each month, you invest $800. Historical stock market returns have averaged about 7% per year over the long run. At that rate, the invested money grows to roughly $138,000 over the ownership period. Now add the insurance savings, because used cars generally carry lower premiums than new ones. Over the ownership period, reduced premiums can save several $1,000s more. Add the financing charges, you avoid it entirely. That money went into your account instead of a lender's profit statement. By the 10th year, the person who bought modestly and invested the difference has accumulated over $100,000 in a portfolio. The person who bought new has a car worth roughly $12,000. A decade of receipts shows where the rest of the money went. The gap between these choices, carried forward across a lifetime of vehicle decisions, can exceed $200,000 in accumulated wealth. That difference comes from a single decision made at a car dealership. A single car over a decade of ownership costs roughly $100,000 in net costs. Now multiply that across a lifetime of driving. The average American purchases roughly 9 vehicles over their driving years. Costs vary significantly based on the choices made along the way. But even at a conservative average, the lifetime transportation bill approaches $500,000. For many households, more money flows toward cars over a lifetime than toward retirement savings. Most people accept this without ever running the numbers, because car payments feel like a utility bill, and the math stops at the monthly statement. The full picture is different. When you extend the view across 40 years of the vehicle ownership, the car is often the most expensive non-housing decision a person makes, and that cycle repeats every few years with the same assumptions and the same absence of real calculation. Here is what the full calculation shows. A new car at current average prices costs roughly $100,000 over a decade of ownership after accounting for the resale value. The loan payment represents less than half of that total, because insurance, fuel, maintenance, and depreciation make up the rest, quietly and consistently, year after year. Most people focus on the monthly payment because that is the number they see. But the real cost of car ownership is not $800 a month. It is $100,000 a decade. The decision of what to buy, how to finance it, and when to replace it is one of the most consequential financial choices most households ever make. It just rarely gets analyzed that way. If you want to understand where your money is going, the car is one of the first places to start. Count the total, not just the monthly payment. If this breakdown was useful, subscribe to CashCinema. We run the real numbers on the decisions that cost people the most money. Sources for every figure in this video are listed in the description below.